Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views in News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the upcoming budget for the year 2021-2022, and the interesting part is that it is going to be announced on 11th. Now, a lot of projections, a lot of stories behind the GDP growth digit, 4%, perhaps that was initially at 3.94%, or 4.8%, or somewhat between these two, as the agriculture growth has shown a lot of potential. When you talk about the wheat, look at the number of bales that we have produced, 27 million plus. You talk about sugarcane, 20% plus production, despite the fact that the sugar industry mafia, let me use this word, is not paying the right appropriate price to these sugarcane growers, especially when you talk about the delay in their payments. I mean, that's another issue. You talk about the rice. Rice has shown a significant growth, so definitely we can export it to various countries like Iran now. I remember once we exported rice worth $1.2 billion. Just imagine. So, you know, a lot has been happening on there. Large-scale manufacturing, especially during the last couple of months, has shown a lot of growth. And perhaps it is going to be in double digits by the end of this fiscal year, so that we can have the right data. You talk about services, again, significant growth in that part as well. As far as COVID-19 is concerned, I think because of the government policies and the SOPs which the people followed, or perhaps did not follow, but still it is very much in control. Situation is a lot better than India. So today, these schools, they have been opened. You talk about the markets, they're allowed to operate till 8 o'clock. The restaurants open. I mean, things are getting back to normal. I'm not saying everybody is going to be the same the way it used to be way back in 2019. No, sir. But yes, certain things would be pretty much the same, but with certain SOPs. Despite all that, we have been able to manage a lot of decent digits. And how correct those are, what sort of an impact those digits will have on our economy, what sort of a budget do we expect. Now, the government always says, and this time also they've said this is going to be growth-oriented and pro-poor. So the current interest rate has been kept at 7%. That's pretty reasonable. It used to hover around 13, 14% at a time, when the entire world was actually at around 0.25% interest like UK, or 0% in America. So a lot has been happening. The finance minister seems pretty confident, and he says that things will improve. Stock market has really shown some very, very amazing kind of records. I mean, 2 billion shares in one day, that's not a joke. So a lot is happening on that front. Quickly, to introduce our panelists, we have with us in our studio on my right is Sardar Yasir Khan Saab. Needs no introduction. He's a known figure. Sardar Saab is the president of Islamabad Chamber of Commerce and Industry. What a pleasure to have you, sir. Thank you so much for your time, Sardar Saab. And we also have with us Faisal Saab. Again, needs no introduction. He's a senior stock market broker and a stock market expert. Thank you so much, Faisal, for your time as well. And we also have with us Tahir Abbas Saab. Tahir Saab is an economist, head of research, RF Habib Securities. He's joining us from Karachi. Thank you so much, Tahir Abbas Saab, for your participation in our show as well, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. But now, let me start off from you, Sardar Yasir Khan Saab. Since you're the man who is putting his thumb on the pulse of the Ministry of Finance, I would say at the moment, sir, the digits which they have shown regarding the growth rate, I mean, they believe that they will surpass those, and perhaps all the three sectors they've shown significant growth. And the last couple of months, as far as the exports are concerned, great. As far as the imports are concerned, they're improving, but we exactly know what sort of machinery is coming in, which will eventually help us in future exports. Now, this particular digit, the magic figure under 5, seems to be achievable. But few people believe that it might stay between 2 to 3%. Few a little more optimistic believe 3 to 3.5%. And few believe no, whatever the government is saying is absolutely correct. We might go beyond the number which earlier we thought is going to be pretty, I would say, overambitious. Your take, Sardar Saab.
I personally would wish for that to happen. I think all of us want this country to progress more than anything else. And I think the dilemma is that, you know, we need to look at the reality. And I think last year, with everything that happened, COVID-19, negative 4% is exactly where we were. And with regards to the losses, you're looking at about nearly 2 trillion rupees worth of losses last year. And with the partial lockdown this year, we have on record it's about 1 trillion loss which we face this year. We're looking at the large-scale manufacturing, which you're saying it's about 7% growth, which is accurate. I mean, I think we haven't shut the factories down, haven't shut the industries down, which benefited us in terms of local produce as well as the exports. But at the same time, you're neglecting your retail, you're neglecting your hospitality, you're neglecting all the other sectors which have been closed, and those are the sectors which are obviously going to contribute to the economy as well. And I think that's the bottom line, that we want for it to hit 4%, but I think it's an ambitious target, and I think it's a bit over-optimistic. Realistically, I also foresee that we might be in the range of maybe 2 to 3%. Look, that's again the documented side. If you look at the undocumented side, now documented is only by 5%. If you look at the undocumented side, the 95% of the economy, then we could be well over 5%. But that's what we have to look at. Unfortunately, we haven't got the documentation side, so you can't really say that. And that's something you're not going to be able to report to IMF, even if we are doing well. We're not going to be able to tell the rest of the world where we are.
So it's all about the magic figures at the end of the day.
Yes.
So you need a magician somewhere playing around with the numbers. So your take, Faisal, on the same point. The stock market is just booming, sir.
Yeah.
Just like the cryptocurrency Bitcoin, huh?
No, not like Bitcoin is doing decently well. I won't put it there. I think so. If you take my take is that 3.94. I think so. It's pretty reasonable. I don't think so. There's much fudging there. It might cross 4% because last year, if you remember, June was the month where everything was shut down, and if you take the three major months where everything was shut down was April, May, and June.
Correct.
And in July, gradually it started opening up. The economy started getting back to its feet. So I believe that as far as GDP growth is concerned, we might cross 4%. It's not a big deal. We were blessed with bumper crops, and yes, maybe there are some overzealous estimation there where we can say wheat is estimated maybe 1 million tons more, but if it's not 27, it's 26, it's still not that bad. Other than cotton, all the other 5 major crops we did well. On export sides, we did well. IT did really well. It doubled it. We are expecting it to reach $2 billion this year. From almost $800 million previous year. So I think so overall, though it's a totally different story. If you ask me, I don't believe that much into just this one figure, GDP growth. It depends upon the composition of GDP. Is it sustainable? Is it inclusive? Are we still going to wait for the trickle-down effect? That doesn't come because we don't have sustainable growth. We have periods of growth, 2 years, 3 years. And by the time that trickle-down effect...
It's more or less like an ECG.
Right. Yes. So the trickle-down effect, it's called trickle-down because it's going to trickle down. It's not flowing down. It's going to trickle down. And by the time that trickle-down thing came up, like after 3 years, 4 years, we are again nosediving. Our economy going down. We are again back to IMF. Again, interest rates jumping. Again, all of that, devaluation of rupee, and everybody pays for it. A common man pays for it. Everybody pays for it. So I think it's more to do with the composition of GDP, how we are going to take, and if we are going to focus on agriculture, yes, there's absolute need to do that, focus on water resources, everything. Are we going to not wait for trickle-down effect, but look for bottom-up approach maybe this time, which will be far more better? Because in Pakistan case, I don't think so. If you want to improve common man, lives of a common man, you cannot wait for trickle-down effect. That being said, on a lighter note, I would just say, but the positive thing about these numbers and these surprise numbers, and it's again a different story why they are surprise numbers. How bad we are at getting the data, and how bad we are with our projections, economic projections. That is a surprise.
There's another very major problem. It's not about because collecting the primary data, the secondary data. Analyzing it, forecasting it, planning. I mean, it's a whole procedure. PhDs are done on this. And honestly speaking, let me be very candid here. Once it was Pakistan People's Party's government, I remember, and there was this Secretary of Agriculture and a couple of ministers of agriculture and livestock. They were over here to give the data to the Federation that this is what we. And honestly speaking, the kind of attitude the man had, he said like, well, this is what it was last time, so it seems as if it is going to be similar this time. I mean, no data collection from Rodi or Ghotki or Hyderabad or Mirpur or otherwise. That what exactly is going on? What sort of crop was grown? Look at the per acre yield. I mean, we are still living in the 17th century. Honestly speaking, the Roman Empire was better in per acre yield as compared to Pakistan now. I mean, this is the problem. This is the dilemma. When you talk to the concerned people, they talk about a lot of research and marketing in the seeds development and so much more. But in reality, what exactly is happening, God knows. You can do so much in this country and at a large scale. But unfortunately, we're just more concerned that we are number 6 producer in milk, but nobody talks about what sort of a wastage factor is there.
Absolutely.
We talk about fruit and vegetable and the taste
Right.
and the quantity in which we produce.
Right.
50% of it goes waste because we
Yes,
don't
yes.
have any storage
Cold
facility.
storage,
I mean,
yes.
there's is a chaos, and this is what we've been hearing.
If I
Faisal,
might add,
if you allow me, sir, I'll just
Sure, sure,
also
sure.
bring in our friend Tahir Abbas in the talk, and then definitely we'll have a very interesting session on that. Tahir sir, first of all, since somebody from Karachi is always considered smarter than people like us sitting in Punjab, because you people manage business, you deal with business, you know the instincts, you know the ingredients, you know exactly what is going on. Because when you talk about the pulse of the economy, I think nobody would be better than people like you, and especially the kind of sector you are in. Capital market obviously is doing wonderful. But let's talk about the, first of all, the image, because whenever the stock market functions well or performs well, this makes the headlines. Oh, the top 10 Pakistan stock exchange is among the top 10 or ranked number 6. But sir, looking at the trade, I mean, I was surprised to see why $2 billion worth of, I mean, not $2 billion, 2 billion shares worth of trade. We did not find any oil reserves or perhaps any mountain of gold, or we did not crack into some sort of a diamond mine or something. How come? What's going on, sir?
Okay, thank you for inviting me to the program. First, I would like to add little on the GDP growth perspective, which you have discussed. As at AHL, we are expecting a GDP growth of 4.57% for fiscal year 21. Like it's higher than the government number of 3.94%. Just shortly, I would like to summarize the two major aspects of the breakup of the GDP. First, obviously, agriculture sector growth is expected at around 2.77%. You have major bumper crops except cotton, and we have witnessed that there's a decline of around 15.58% in cotton ginning. However, coming to the industrial sector, specifically for LSM, government has projected around 8.71% of LSM growth for fiscal year 21. If we see the data of 9 months of fiscal year 21, we already have around 9% of growth. So I believe, as we are aware that during last year, we have a severe lockdown starting from April till June. There's a low base effect. Despite incorporating the month-on-month decline in the month of May because of the Eid holidays, along with some lazy days in June as well, we are expecting the total LSM growth to clock in at 12.35% for fiscal year 21. So that will revise basically the industrial growth from 3.57%, which government is projecting, as compared to our projection of around 5.89%. And lastly, the services sector. The services sector has posted a growth of around 8.37% year on year as per government GDP number. However, we expect this growth to be around 9.40%, slightly higher than the government estimates. That will change the services sector contribution from 4.4% to 4.7%. So, by just changing these two factors, one is LSM and second is wholesale and retail trade. And just to clarify why we have revised upward the wholesale and retail trade, because if you see the methodology of GDP growth, the proxy of calculating wholesale and retail trade is basically your total trade, which is total import plus total export. As we have already witnessed in the 10th month number, that our imports are up around 8% and our exports are up around 6%. So we believe that when the final number arrive, the GDP growth would be 4.5%, slightly higher than the government estimate. Now coming to the stock market perspective, yes, I agree that the volumes of around 2 billions are mostly in the penny stocks, but you have to see, you have to analyze basically what's going on. Obviously, stock market is always forward looking. indicator of the economy. If economy is expected to grow in the near future or in the mid future, obviously that will reflect in stock market along with some sentiments as well. So yes, I agree, the traded value should be seen in terms of analyzing the growth perspective of the stock market rather than the volume. uh, all the shares which are traded, those are penny stocks. Yes, they don't contribute significantly in the value traded, but I would say it's more of a sentiment call, and people, specifically retail segment, is basically buying those shares, and that is because of the positive expectation of the economy going forward.
All right. So that's a very optimistic report, actually, when you talk about um, the overall capital market and its approach. But obviously, it is not the absolute indicator of the economic growth, and especially when you talk about a country like Pakistan. Also, a couple of more important areas. What we have witnessed during the last couple of months is that the oil demand, and I'm talking about at the international level and also in Pakistan, it's picking up. Now, that is a very pertinent indicator when you talk about the economic growth. I mean, if your energy need is increasing by 30%, means that at least you're on the right track, right path. Looking at these output of oil, I mean, they are increasing that, but still the prices are pretty high. You believe, sir, that the kind of, menace, let me call this COVID-19, that was all around us at least for 15, 16 months, and perhaps the overall impact is getting diluted slowly but surely. That effect is going to be there, and the overall, that shrinking of the economy that we have witnessed earlier, I mean, the ball is back in its shape, and things will be moving normally. So that is going to give a lot of push, provided these numbers are right, and this is what we end up getting on 11th. How do you see that part,
I
sir?
think personally, Pakistan's economy is not going to contract. It never was contracting. COVID-19 was a phase.
So we had a negative growth in so many sectors.
But that was primarily because of COVID-19. Had COVID-19 not been there, we would have definitely been going well over 5%, maybe even 6% as we had anticipated. So I think that was just basically a slowdown. A phase which Pakistan went through was an induced recession. It wasn't something which was planned. I think for a temporary period there was a halt, but now we're moving forward. And there's a lot of, if you look at the foreign exchange, liquid foreign exchange reserves are well over 23 billion. The level of foreign remittances coming back to Pakistan,
almost the same amount, yeah?
So if you look at Pakistan's overall economic side and the optimism that you see in the market, as well as our overseas Pakistanis that are investing back at home, I think that's very positive. Also, you look at the real estate sector; it's booming like anything right now. For which we're again going to request the government to extend the construction package, so we can take more benefit of this. Because the more free hand you give people, the more confidence they have. There's a few things which you need to look at. I mean, in terms of incentivizing the economy, in terms of helping businesses go back on their feet, I think there's going to be a lot to do with the upcoming budget. And which we're going to make a number of recommendations. Also with regards to oils and reserves that the country has, the one thing we have to overcome is the fiscal deficit. We need to get out of this IMF thing. I mean, until and unless we're not able to get out of that, we're going to constantly be regulated by their rules, and we're going to play by their rules. And that's the one thing that's going to hit Pakistan back, and it's going to help people like you and me and our generations to come paying back a debt which we never actually asked for. 6 billion is not a big amount. $6 billion.
Not even the debt, sir, the interest of the debt.
Look, if you ask me right now, why aren't we getting the taxpayer? There's a number of reasons why we're not able to generate this volume. Look, there's a huge amount of ambiguity about where the tax is actually going. There's a harassment side of it as well. The more important thing is, in every Pakistani's mind, it's a big question mark. There's a huge lack of confidence in the ability of the government to be able to justify and spend that expenditure, make that expenditure. So a taxpayer's money, where is it going to be utilized? Is it going to be utilized properly? That's the first thing that anybody wants to ask. Secondly, the complexity of the tax system. There's about 70 types of taxation in Pakistan. Who wants to get into that? So we need to simplify this. And obviously, in terms of the tax itself, it's very hefty. So we need to regulate that and reduce it. That's why I keep saying tax reforms. And these are the fundamentals that are going to help us move as a strong economy, move forward. There's a few things which I've proposed. In terms of our taxation, I mean, if you look at the basics, which are going to have a huge impact in our industries, we keep saying that you need to bring down the turnover tax from 1.5% to 0.5% across the whole sector. That's going to give us a big boost. We keep saying that you need to bring down the GST to 5%. That's really going to help. And one really, really major
It's already at 7%.
Yeah, but we bring it down to 5%. Everything is going to, every penny counts right now because of what we've gone through. See, we haven't been given any financial incentive.
Do you think the government is in a position to give that kind of a subsidy or relaxation for that matter?
IMF allows
they say that, no matter what we do with the electricity, at the end of the day, the government is giving a lot of subsidy on electricity. Yep. The point is, sir, that subsidy it does help. Look at France for that matter. When you talk about their agricultural subsidy, I think it's one of the highest in the world, right, sir? Because looking at the production of wine for that matter, I mean, that is the top-notch value-added product they have, other than so many products as well. Yeah, definitely. The fashion, for example, and tourism. I mean, there's medicine. You talk about the
clothing brand
government. I mean, is really doing so well when it comes to the export of military equipment in France. I mean, but subsidies over here, sir. SR's program could be a great program. It can bring down the poverty level. But is that what you're going to do for a lifetime? Keep printing money and keep distributing money, sir?
Obviously not.
One. And that also brings in a lot of inflation, and that's for sure. Second, sir, that, there should be a long-term growth-oriented program that, this is what you need to do, because I think the time has come that semi-skilled labor is not going to be in demand. Things are getting different. We are heading towards an absolute different world, sir.
Yeah.
The one which we used to even talk about as kids, it has become a reality. When you see, I still remember when I saw the Japanese Prime Minister Koizumi, right? What was his name?
Yeah.
The guy with the long hair, And the first lady was a robot. He was married, right? So I was like, okay, things are changing.
Yes.
So this is exactly where the globe is going to go. We are still stuck in the cash economy, the grey economy system. I mean, the world, forget about the plastic money, digital economy, digital money. You're talking about cryptocurrencies for that matter, and look at their value. Are we ready? I'm not saying that we need to be absolutely parallel to what the Western world is doing, but at least the direction should be
I know,
somewhat
frankly,
the
we're
same.
not ready. I don't think we're ready. Legislation, policy reforms, I think we're at least a good 5 years behind. And it depends how fast we can introduce reforms across all industries, all sectors. And the reason I talked about taxpayers' money is we don't know which state-owned enterprise that money is going down the drain on, because that's exactly what's happening. We keep talking about privatization, but it's never happening. Until unless you don't do that, let a businessman decide how to run that company or run that institution. Only then where you're going to see a big difference. You're going to see that in terms of the overheads are going to go down. The unnecessary hiring that we've done, whether it's government schools, government hospitals, government institutions, that's going to stop then and there, because we know how important it is to save money. Every penny counts, and that's the difference. That people are content doing what they're doing. We're not. We want perfection. Only we can achieve that because we know how it's done. We're running our organizations. We're going to run theirs as well. So there's a lot that has to be done. But for that, you need to take our input. You need to take us on board. There's another thing which is really important. I keep saying this over and over, which is a revolution if you do this in Pakistan, for us to move in the right direction. Fixed tax. I've proposed this with the current government right now, with the current budget. You need to go down, or at least begin with 2% fixed tax across the whole spectrum. And that's going to bring a lot of money into the country, billions of rupees, especially because you're going to be targeting the traders. And those are the guys who are running all the markets. Everywhere you go, traders, Sadr, you go to all the Marakas, you go to Karachi company, you go to Karachi, go to Lahore. Major players are those traders, and none of them are paying tax. And only through this fixed tax can we bring it into the tax net, and it's going to be easy. I mean, at least they're paying something. Right now, they're paying nothing. So that entire burden is falling on taxpayers like us, and we can only sustain it for so long, and we're going to eventually collapse.
I mean, tax collection, tax reforms, automation. I mean, we have been talking about it for a very long time, Faisal Saab. Whenever I get to talk to Abdullah Yusuf Saab, he says that, this is what we had earlier achieved way back in early 2004-5. There was a time when our economic growth rate hit 8.7%. I mean, there was a time when we were expecting that if there is a consistency for at least 15 to 20 years, we are out of all sorts of trouble. But now, sir, one issue, the biggest problem, and a lot of people do not talk about it, but I believe when you talk about the micro-environmental factors, they are there in Pakistan, but obviously there are certain factors which are the macro-environmental factors. Afghan situation, US withdrawal. So that is going to be a problem and a half, because the people whomsoever I've talked to, they all fear a civil war-like situation there. And definitely, sir, when there is something of that sort right next to you, the problem is going to be there, because the fallout factor is going to be in Pakistan, either in the form of refugees or in the form of law and order. And that is what we have started witnessing. Look at what happened in Quetta the other day, or for that matter, the attacks on our forces and so on and so forth. Faisal Saab?
Okay, there's so many.
Because your law and order was always blamed, if you remember.
Right, there's so many topics I would like to touch right now, starting from data and composition of GDP as we kept on piling up. But
Please go ahead.
but let's start with what
You have
you're
all the
saying.
time.
First thing, whatever we have, the geopolitical situation, we need to understand that world has moved away from geoeconomics, to geopolitical to geoeconomics, right? The Western interest, there's no more Western interest in Middle East. Oil is done and dusted. If you can see the changes that is happening in Middle East, then they're the only one country they're interested in. Israel, they have no other interest. Oil is done and dusted. They're done with it. Now their interest starts with a very China-centric policy, tussle between the West and you can say the East, more towards technology, more towards 5G, more towards you can say what is happening in Pacific, the trading routes. So their focus, all the West focus has shifted away. It has started from India going forward. Before this, we were there, right? Because Afghanistan was there and Middle East was there and we were part of it. We were in the thick. But I think
you were the top-notch non-NATO ally, sir.
right, for last, whatever.
And you paid for it.
Yes, it's a love-and-hate relationship going on for last like 30 years or whatever it is. Starting from Afghan war, Russian and Cold War, everything. But we have to understand.
I would say starting from ever since Pakistan came into being,
Yeah.
to be very honest.
Yeah, you can start from there. But we have to realize that going forward, it's over. For next 20 years, it's going to be, the whole thing is going to be towards technology. Who's going to control blockchain, who's going to control 5G. Americans expect whoever comes up with 5G, whoever takes the lead, he will add around $500 billion in their economy. Is the Industrial Revolution 4.0, and it's a whole different topic. And what we can do is, yes, we have to live with Afghanistan. Yes, Americans are going to withdraw, and absolutely we cannot withdraw. We cannot pick up Pakistan and go anywhere else. But we can focus on our internal issues. We can focus on internal growth, on our economic growth, and there is a lot of room to do that. Coming towards digitization, we are absolutely not ready for digitization. We are nowhere even near that. We just have buzzwords. I give you an example. There's such a talk about what happened with COVID. Why did Pakistan did better than India, than your peers? Why did you do better? And one of the reasons is two basic reasons, which I believe. First, most of your decisions were data-driven. You got NCOC, and you were picking up data. And you were picking up live data. Every day you were picking up data. And most of your decisions were driven by that data.
Correct.
It was not driven by anything else. You see the difference it makes. Yes, there were other variables.
I think data is the most important component when it comes to your decision-making process.
Right. And there were other variables in it that you weren't getting every day. But that is where your Prime Minister House was there, where it said, okay, we will bear this much load because we don't want unemployment. We don't want to close down the economy. But they did it. Look at Eid, look at smart lockdowns before that. Whenever the things started to get out of the hand, the preemptive action by the government, they should be, they should be applauded for that. Second thing, because of the IMF, when COVID happened, IMF gave you, no more your interest rate was linked to core inflation. And again, we should be applauding State Bank. How fast did they reduce the rate? And we didn't have that much money.
I mean, I totally failed to understand what was going on, sir, regarding our monetary policy.
Before or after?
Even before.
Even before.
I think so. Afterwards, I would really say that State Bank did really well by bringing it down.
So bringing it, I mean, it was 0% in America, or it was 0.25% in UK, I remember. Less than 1% in most of the European countries, and we were playing around somewhere 13.5
by the way,
and
it's
14%.
still not 7. It's actually 10. If you add Khyber, it actually is 10.
Interest
So
Karachi.
we've been saying bring it down to 3%, which they kept saying no, it's not going to happen. We needed to come down near 3% to make it attractive.
The question is now, if you want to have a growth-oriented budget or a growth-oriented policy for that matter, there need to be an alignment, right, sir?
But we cannot, if we bring it down that much, look, you already have, then there is an issue of, devaluation of rupee.
And inflation as well?
Inflation is there, and
because there's going to be more money in the market, more money with
inflation
the
has to do
private sector, means more investment.
Yes. Our inflation has a lot more to do with our failure in the last 20 years by reducing our manufacturing base, agriculture.
40% of your basic, the food it is all about the food basket.
All right.
And that is related to your demand and supply. I mean, a country where sometimes you end up buying tomatoes at 300 rupees a kg, and most of the times they're scarce. And at the same time, you hear that 2 rupees a kg is not being offered to the farmer, and they're throwing it in different canals. I mean, this is practically
if you look
what is
at the
happening.
composition of your GDP, do you know how much agriculture has lost as being part of our GDP?
Sir, I used to do a show, I remember, way back almost 2 decades ago.
Right.
And that was the time when, that was the first program
From
on stock market. I remember stock market was at 1100 points.
Right.
1100. And we used to think that it's going to touch 5,000 someday. Akhil Dedi Saab was very, very optimistic, and he said, yes, you have to wait and see. What I'm saying is, sir, that when you talk about such issues for that matter, what exactly is going on, I mean, because the data isn't available,
Right.
forecast you can't do on the basis of that data, and that is where the confusion seems to be. So if you allow me,
Sure, sure.
another very important factor, because we're running out of time, but still, energy, sir. Whenever we talk about energy, Tahir Saab, I think that is the most important component. Sometimes we hear that, okay, well, there was this acute shortage of energy, so most of our textile, sector owners, they either left Pakistan, they moved to Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, or various other places, or even they had shut down their plants in Pakistan. One. When the energy was available, it was available at a very high cost, so the cost of doing business was so high that you couldn't compete with your regional players, and obviously you end up losing your market share. Now, sir, what I'm saying is that since we end up hearing that now this coal project is on, that other coal project is on, we have found this kind of a reserve, this is the kind of deal we will be having with UAE or Saudi Arabia for that matter. My question is, sir, we are going green or we are going black? Because if the entire globe thinks that by the year 2035, every car in Europe is going to be on batteries, or electric cars would be there, where are we going, sir? Why are we so, different from the rest of the world? Because there could be a ban in the future. There could be a ban on the coal output. There could be a ban on the use of fossil oil. There could be. So we are doing what would be productive for us, say, in another 15 years, but by that time, things would be so different. Your take, sir, the laws, the legislations, and the kind of pressures. I mean, look at what TF can do to us. I'll just give you one example. Your take, sir.
Yeah, I completely agree with you with respect to our power mix. We have installed local coal-based power plant, imported coal-based power plant, and when our first coal-based power plant came online, at that time, China was already producing around 60% of their energy mix on coal, and but they are reducing. India was around producing 40% of their energy mix from coal, and they was also reducing and moving towards renewable. I think this was the major flaw in our energy mix, because initially we were dependent on the furnace oil based generation, and obviously with the passage of time, when there was huge shortage, then the large government decided to install certain capacity, and obviously that capacity, along with CPEC project, government-owned power plants, hydel power plants, renewable energy. So now we are ending up with surplus electricity. As far as going forward with the renewable energy is concerned, I believe that obviously now it's the current government policy to only install cleaner energy power projects, which includes obviously the hydel project, and the other are wind and solar project. As far as hydel projects are concerned, the upfront cost is very high, the duration is very long. For instance, we have recently started the Amir Bhasha Dam, but obviously it will take 8 to 10 years to complete that dam.
Exactly, that's exactly what my point is. Yeah.
In addition to that, we have also started the Dasu hydropower project, but obviously we need to balance between the cleaner energy and our requirement, and as we are aware that all the contracts are take and pay, so either we are utilizing that energy or not, we have to pay capacity payment, and that is the primary reason the current government is stuck. Like our current capacity payments are around 1 trillion rupees, and for the next 2 years in fiscal year 23 we will end up in 1.5 trillion rupees. So ideally, if there is no growth in the electricity demand, the per unit capacity charges will significantly go higher and higher with the addition of the upcoming power plant in the next 2 to 3 years, and that's a prime reason government is focusing on generating electricity demand. And we have witnessed that last year the Prime Minister has announced the electricity scheme for the industries, in which they'll be getting half rate of what the industrial tariff is on the additional consumption of that electricity. In addition to that, the government has disconnected all the gas-based power plants, which are captive power plant and generating electricity on natural gas. So I think the government is trying to manage the energy sector in general, and particularly the major issue at this point in time is circular debt. We have already witnessed the government has made payment of around 90 billion rupees on Friday to all the IPPs, but this is just a little chunk. Our total circular debt is around 2.4 trillion as of
Exactly, I was
now.
coming. In fact, I just wrote circular debt. I was about to ask you this. That's a 2.4 trillion, sir. I remember because you know the current government always ends up blaming the previous government. That see, this is what you did, and we are paying for it. I mean, perhaps the next government, whosoever is in power, could end up blaming the current government if there's a government change. What I'm saying is, sir, the most important area, the most important part, you know, when you talk about the statements issued. I mean, I remember when Ishaq Dar Saab was the finance minister. I'm talking about year 2013, sir, 8 years ago, 8 years. And I still remember the magic number was 503 billion, and most of that money went to Mia Mansha Saab for various reasons. But what I'm saying is that 500 billion was like a bomb exploding on a head. So now you're talking about, this means that highly inefficient public sector. Why to pump into that, or why to bet on a horse, sir, which you are sure will lose? What kind of a philosophy is this? What kind of a projection is this? What kind of a race course is this, by the way, sir? Where you're betting, where as they say in Urdu, langde ghode pe paise lagana. That's up.
Yes. So I would like to add a little point here. I agree that this government always criticized previous government for all the IPP's contract, but actually the thing is, all those contracts were backed by sovereign guarantees. So you cannot just dishonor that we are not going to pay you.
That is where the problem is. Pay them in dollars now. Thank God Khan Saab has done something better. Now they get the money in rupees.
Yeah. What government can do, and they have did in the recent past, that they are renegotiating the contract. So basically, in the contract, we have a debt repayment of around 10 year upfront. So the government is trying to manage it to 15 to 20 years. And one important element I would like to add: yes, government has negotiated the IPP contracts. Government is gonna renegotiate with the Hydel, with the CPEC, and all the power project. But one major important element of intensifying circular debt is the transmission and distribution losses, which are hovering around 14 to 15% in our country. And second is the recovery ratio. We have around 91% recovery ratio. So if we club those two things, it will be generating around 150 to 200 billion rupees, depending upon the demand for the Pakistan.
Sir, the mafias won't let you do it. You know why? Because they have their own interests. There are people who are the tycoons, who are the untouchables, and they won't make you have those sort of plans which can, give a lot of boost to the economy. So the interesting part is that, again, for centuries I've been hearing that we'll be installing smart meters in Pakistan, the ones which are used in Sweden, made in Sweden. Oh, great. And I was reading an article, sir, and they are practically doing it, wireless electricity. We are still thinking of spending, if we ever do that, the actual cost could be between 60 to 80 billion dollars. Imagine, just to sort out our distribution setup, sir. This is what is happening. You have the capacity to produce electricity, but you do not have the capacity to deliver it to X, Y, or Z, because the lines would burst. They can't take the pressure. It's just like, stopping Titanic with your left hand. My problem is, sir, and I think this is the problem of every Pakistani, that basic policies are not either made, not implemented because of the vested interest of the people, sir. We sometimes produce surplus of a certain product and we export it and then we import the same on a much higher prices. So it's a two-way traffic. Nothing can be done. I'm not taking any names. You know what I'm saying. Untouchables. And in Pakistan, forget about Pakistan, sir, anywhere in the world. I mean, if you're smart, you can get away with each everything. Sorry, Atay? Yeah, please.
I would just add last point on the energy sector specifically.
Yeah,
So
please.
basically, government need to generate demand for the electricity generation. So if we are getting growth will be there in electricity generation, the demand will be there, the per unit capacity payment will be lower, and eventually the general public will get benefit out of it. Secondly, government need to seriously work on the transmission and distribution losses and recovery ratio. If government fail to do so, then going forward 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road, we'll be again messing up with the circular debt.
All right, and this is what has been happening for a very long time. It has to be through a proper private public partnership or something of that sort, sir. Just imagine, there was a time when there was like a huge bidding. Sis, you lived in Middle East, and you know, when Etisalat wanted to buy this PTCL, imagine now that technology, that old school of thought. I was looking at the bills of my residential telephone numbers, and they were hardly 600 and 700, the other one was, because nobody uses it anymore. It's just the tax you're paying on that. What I'm saying, things have changed.
Evolved.
I mean, everything is, moving. Look at what is happening in California, for that matter. People talk about Elon Musk, that this is what he's doing. Future is all
That's the
about.
future.
It's
EVs.
different. Absolutely.
Every company, you look at Mercedes, you look at Hyundai, Kia, everybody's coming into EVs, and China's invading the whole market, yet we're not even thinking about it yet. We're not looking at any local production, and that's what we're lacking out on.
The way they are purchasing lithium from left, right, and center, there is a war going on between the Japanese and the Chinese regarding the purchase of copper, for that matter. I mean,
World is world. We're
Yeah.
not moving ahead, and I think that's a dilemma. And exactly what we're coming back to. You're talking about circular debt. I keep saying that we still need to bring the per unit cost down another 5 rupees. I'm looking at every benefit that we can give to the industries, because what people don't understand is this country is only going to progress if we have an industrial revolution in the next 10 years. You're looking at employment, you're looking at transfer of technology, you're looking at value addition in every sector, whether it's agro, whether it's furniture, you name it, whether it's IT, and that's only going to happen through the industries. It's a fundamental backbone of this country, but yet it's neglected and overlooked. On
I
every
mean, we
form.
talk about IT, sir. 1 billion, perhaps this year we're going to hit 2 billion, or I don't know, I'm not
Right.
sure about the figure. I mean, the Prime Minister, in fact, promised 2 years ago, I still remember, that 4% would be achieved next year, and the next year was supposed to be last year.
India
But
is
fine.
touching $136 billion.
That's exactly what I'm saying, sir. Every single movie is being edited in India, made in India.
Fox Studios is there,
I mean,
Universal is there,
sir,
everybody's there.
if they can get hold of Range Rover and
Jaguar.
and they are making their own brands, and they are as good as any and much cheaper. And you're talking about Pakistan, sir, over here. See what we did to our showrooms in Karachi the other day.
It's tragic, isn't
I mean, this is what it is at the end of the day. Fateh Saab.
Look, if we talk about IT in India, they crossed from 1 billion to 100 billion within 10 years, almost 10 years.
Because sir, they were investing
Right.
in the right
so
direction.
it's-
As they
it's-
say,
it's just
stars,
having-
dogs,
it's just
cash
having-
cows.
It's just having priorities, right? When we talk about our economy, I completely agree. As far as electricity is concerned, we need to increase our, consumption of electricity. Most of that consumption has to come from the industry. But our major issue with the industry, especially with large-scale manufacturing, that we are is good. Whatever is happening is good. But sorry to be a little bit, party pooper in that, pessimistic in that. Most of our
So you don't want to spread happiness through your
No,
content.
I-
the way we end up
I
seeing
want
it on
people to be
Facebook all the
happy.
time.
But look, our manufacturing in mostly we assemble things, we don't manufacture things, right? What we do with the cars, what
we
we
are
do.
also consume.
Yeah, we consume that. We don't
Understand,
export
yeah,
it.
yeah.
We bring all the stuff from outside, whether it's cars, whether it's your electronics, consumer electronics. Look at ACs, compressors are coming. They are imported. You just fit
Assemble
the
it.
body and you assemble it, right? You are not manufacturing
Just
it.
import it, put
Yes.
your own sticker.
Yes,
And there
and
you
that
go.
is our large-scale manufacturing, whether it is automobiles. I'm not saying creating your own automobiles, manufacturing them, marketing them, but I'm talking about after such a long period of incentives to automobile industry, we are still not exporting auto parts, right? You could have, like, at least we should be exporting some kind of auto parts, maybe few bulbs or halogen lights. That would
Thank
be.
God we are not importing, so or you would have been banned.
Considering how central we are, we should be going into Central Asia and to Europe from Pakistan. We should be going to the Middle East from Pakistan.
Exactly.
Considering we have the Guadalajara.
I mean, look out for new version markets.
Of
New
course.
product. I mean, product line really needs to be changed. Direction needs to be changed. Operating procedures should be changed. The staff in your foreign embassies should be changed. Should not be based on diplomacy anymore, because you know, ethics or no ethics really doesn't make any difference. But the real question is, sir, what really matters is money.
You know what this country needs? A special economic cell comprising of the top 5-6 businessmen.
Absolutely.
And they report directly to Prime Minister.
All
and
right.
Cell, that's it.
I would just like to add that's not going to happen, but just so what I believe that we will have next year in the budget, I think so.
All right.
If we can focus on agriculture,
Mhm.
and if we can at least not stop, but at least incentivize industry
Let's
to
see, sir.
move away from the assembly.
This
towards
time, I've heard
manufacturing.
that a lot of money has been allocated for the roads and
That's
other
always-
such infrastructure. And I think, I hope that they really think logically and they do something better. But anyway, thank you so much, Faisal Saab. What a pleasure to have you, Sardar
Thank
Saab. And
you.
thank you so much, Janab Tahir Abbas Saab, for joining us in our program as well, sir. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow at 8. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz.